Hello students, welcome to BBA 204, Principles of Management. Today I will be covering Chapter 1 from the textbook, which is the Innovative Management for a Changing World. Consider this chapter as an introductory chapter to management functions and the type of management activity associated with each function. So in this lecture, I will also explain the difference between efficiency and effectiveness and their importance for organizational performance. We will describe conceptual, human, and technical skills and their relevance for managers. Finally, we will define 10 roles that managers perform in organizations. So the key learning objectives of this chapter is to appreciate the manager's role in small business and non-profit organizations, understand the personal challenges involved in becoming a new manager, and discuss the innovative competencies needed to be an effective manager. So, let's continue with the definition of management first. As we can see here, management involves attaining organizational goals in an effective and efficient manner through planning, organizing, leading, and controlling organizational resources. These four key words, planning, organizing, leading, and controlling, they are the most important management functions, okay? There are two important ideas in these definitions, right? The four functions of planning, organizing, leading, and controlling, and also the attainment of organizational goals in an efficient and effective manner. So the purpose here is not to simply perform those four functions of the management, but the idea is to attain those organizational goals in an efficient and effective manner. Okay? In the case of a planning function, planning basically involves defining goals for future organizational performance and deciding on the tasks and use of resources needed to attain them. So if a manager is in charge of planning, right, which would be the first step in management, if a manager is in charge of planning, the first thing that they will achieve is to select the goals and the ways to attain those organizational goals. The second step, right, organizing, typically follows planning and reflects how the organization will try to accomplish the plan. For instance, the management activity associated with organizing is assigning responsibility for task accomplishment. So every manager, while they're organizing their tasks or activities, should be in a position to delegate responsibility or assign responsibility for task accomplishment within the company. This is an important, organizing is a very, very important function, because if the manager assigns the wrong job to the right person or assigns the right job to the wrong person, there is going to be a mismatch between the skills of the employee and also the goals of the organization. So it's important that through having an effective organizational performance, the manager assigns the right responsibility to each employee. The third one is leading. Leading is all about using influence to motivate employees to achieve the organizational goals. Okay? The management activity associated with leading is something like, for instance, motivating the employees. Okay? Leadership is very, very important. It's a very, very important task to accomplish, and because it is clearly and closely associated with the motivation of the employees. If the leader becomes a role model and upholds the values and the corporate culture of the company, and thereby becoming a role model for the other employees to follow. Leadership, as I said, is a very, very important function because it's all about setting the tone of the corporate culture. It's all about motivating employees, empowering employees, and motivating them to do the right thing. Okay? So leadership is all about motivation, empowerment, and upholding the values and the corporate culture of the company. Okay? So basically, so we ask the question of what do managers do, basically. I mean, the fundamental message of this chapter is to ask the question, are you ready to be a manager, right? Just because we study management doesn't mean that we will all want to become managers. Are you ready to be a manager? Are you ready to take the responsibility for those 4 functions of management that we talk about in the previous chapter? In a world of rapid change, unexpected events, and uncertainty, organizations need managers who can build networks and pull people together toward the common goals. Okay? As I said, I mean, think about this question, okay? So I'm asking you guys the question here, right? By providing you the definition of management, but pay attention to my question, right? The purpose of a management course is to teach students about management, but not to teach them to be managers. Okay? In this class, we're not teaching you to be managers. We're teaching you the tools and the concepts that you need when you join the labor force later in your life. Okay? So we're teaching you about management, learning good management skills, but we're not teaching you how to become managers. So always think about this question. Do you agree or disagree with this statement? Okay? Again, but those 2 issues are very, very related. I think these 2 questions are related. To be a good manager, I think it's also important to learn about management. Okay? This chart basically summarizes some of the examples we talked about, and it is important to know what falls under each function, under planning, controlling, leading, and organizing. Those are the 4 basic functions of management. And of course, every manager needs these resources to be able to perform these functions. So the resources of the company are human, financial, raw materials, technological, and information. Okay? And then the purpose of these management functions is to improve the performance of the company and attain the objectives and the goals that were already set or said in the mission statement of the company. Okay? And performance is a quantitative concept, right? And the only way to measure the performance of the company is look at the quantitative indicators about how the company attained the goals, how they sell their products, how much money that they are making from selling the products, the quality of the services, the efficiency and effectiveness of the services that they're providing. Those are the things that we're going to talk under performance, because performance is a quantitative indicator. And it has to be measured not only in qualitative terms, but also in quantitative terms. An organization, as I said, every business company is an organization. Of course, not all organizations are corporations. Not all organizations are private businesses. So we have businesses other than private enterprises, right? We have non-profit organizations in the United States, even though in the United States, most of the organizations, 90% of the organizations probably are private entities or enterprises. Sometimes in other countries, you would not be surprised to see enterprises sponsored by the government, and most commonly the oil companies are either owned or sponsored by the government. So we call them government-sponsored enterprises, right? Or there might be a mixture of ownership, public-private partnership, or some organizations can be purely private enterprises. They can also be purely public enterprises. But don't forget, an organization is a social entity that is goal-directed and deliberately structured. For instance, what we mean by the deliberate structuring, it means that the tasks are divided and responsibility for their performance is assigned to organization members. For instance, think about the Lehman College. I think Lehman College is a good example of an organization that is not necessarily a private enterprise. It's a non-profit educational organization. Right? Lehman College is a non-profit educational organization, whereas Chase Manhattan is a for-profit financial institution and therefore a business organization. As I said, some organizations are public in nature, like our college, the CUNY system, which is state-funded, and some organizations are just private in nature. But the majority of the business organizations in the United States, in our economy, they are private in nature, which means that they seek profit and they are in the business of money making. Okay? Like banks, private equity firms, real estate firms, and so investment banks. Don't forget about the difference between effectiveness and efficiency. Organizational effectiveness is the degree to which the organization achieves its stated goal or succeeds in accomplishing what it tries to do. Okay? For instance, we do assessment at CUNY system each year to measure the effectiveness of our teaching. So what do we mean by this effectiveness? Effectiveness means asking these following questions. Are students learning what they are supposed to learn? Are they learning what they're supposed to learn? How effective is our teaching? Whereas efficiency means to efficient use of resources, right? It refers to the amount of resources used to achieve an organizational goal. Amount of resources. And when a business is operating efficiently, it means that it is using its resources with minimal waste. Always think about in those terms. The firm, when it is performing efficiently, it means that it uses its resources with minimal waste. So it is based on how much raw material, money, and people are necessary for producing a given volume of output. What is the optimal level of quantity to produce, right? What is the optimal level of quantity to produce? What is the optimal level of workers to hire? What is the optimal level of inputs needed for producing a given volume of output? Okay, so this is all about keeping the cost at minimal and operating with minimal waste. And obviously, all managers have to pay attention to costs. But on the other hand, severe cost cutting to improve efficiency can sometimes hurt the organizational effectiveness. So it's important that there is the right balance between effectiveness and efficiency. We don't sacrifice effectiveness for the sake of efficiency. We do not sacrifice efficiency for the sake of effectiveness, right? If we are constantly paying attention to costs, again, if we were constantly paying attention to cost cutting to improve efficiency, we might end up hurting the organizational effectiveness, losing the highly qualified labor force, and so forth and so on. So it's important not to hurt the organizational effectiveness. Management skills, all managers need those three categories of skills: conceptual, human, and technical. Okay, so this has also been provided in the lecture notes. Conceptual skills, is all about the cognitive ability to see the organization as a whole and the relationships among them, right? It involves knowing where one's team fits into the total organization and how the organization fits into its environment. It also means the ability to think strategically, to take the broad, long-term view and identify, evaluate, and solve complex problems. This is especially important for managers, right? Identifying, evaluating, and solving complex problems. And these problems all relate to decision-making, resource allocation, innovation. Human skills, on the other hand, is all about the manager's ability to relate to employees and to work with others and through other people and to work effectively as a group member, right? So human skills is always demonstrated in the way a manager motivates, facilitates, coordinates, leads, communicates, and resolves conflicts. I think human skill is also very important for managers at all different levels, especially when they're working with employees directly on a daily basis. Okay? Technical skills, obviously, every manager should have the technical skills. It's all about understanding of and proficiency in the performance of specific tasks. So this includes, the mastery of the methods, the techniques, the use of software, equipment involved in specific functions, such as engineering, manufacturing, finance. So technical skill also pertains to using specialized knowledge, analytical ability, quantitative abilities, and competent use of tools and techniques to solve them in that specific discipline. Again, especially technical skills are most important at lower organizational skills levels. So they are most important at the lower organizational levels, especially on the shop floor, and become less important than human and conceptual skills as managers are promoted. Okay? So sometimes the skills fail. Okay? Managers fail to use their skills and competencies to benefit the organizations and its stakeholders. So what happens when the management skills fail? Okay? So we will talk about this issue in part 2 of my lecture. Okay? We are going to start with this slide which says when skills fail. Okay? So we're going to talk about the missteps and unethical behavior that we have seen in the news recently. Okay? And we'll give specific examples for what it means to perform unethical behavior in the workplace. Okay? So far, thank you for listening to my lecture, and I will see you in part 2. Part 2, chapter 1. I will see you shortly. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.